Welcome to Lotus Lane Daily. I'm glad you're here. Today's wisdom is for anyone frozen at a crossroads, unable to choose any path. You know that feeling when you've been staring at the same decision for so long that the words stop making sense? When you've made a pros and cons list, deleted it, started another one, and now it's nearly 2 a.m. and you're no closer to an answer than you were 3 weeks ago. When the thought of choosing option A makes your chest tight, but the thought of choosing option B makes it worse, and staying exactly where you are is somehow the most exhausting choice of all? That's where you are right now, and it's genuinely awful. It doesn't matter whether the decision is about leaving a relationship, taking a job, moving cities, ending a friendship, or something that might look small from the outside but feels enormous from the inside. The paralysis is real. The suffering is real. And the cruel joke of it all is that the longer you stand frozen at the crossroads, the more you feel like something is fundamentally broken in you, like everyone else got a manual for how to make decisions and you somehow missed it. You didn't miss anything. You're just human and you're in pain. Why this happens and why you're not weak. Here's what's actually going on when you can't make a decision. You're not being indecisive. You're being afraid. Specifically, you're afraid of being wrong, of making the choice that turns out to be the one that cost you everything, of looking back in 5 years and really knowing that you picked the wrong door. So instead of risking being wrong, you choose nothing, which feels safer, because if you never choose, you never fail at choosing. Except that's not actually what happens. Not choosing is also a choice. It just gets made by default. By time, by other people, by whatever circumstances decide to fill the vacuum you left behind. The decision still gets made. You just don't get to be the one who makes it. There's also something else happening, something worth naming honestly. Too many options. We live in an era where we're told we can do anything, be anything, pivot at any age, rebuild from scratch, choose again and again. That sounds freeing. It isn't always. Sometimes it just means the menu is so long that you sit there for 40 minutes, unable to order, and the waiter has come back 3 times and you're sweating slightly, and the people you're with are hungry, and you still don't know what you want. More options don't make decisions easier. They often make them harder. The thing nobody tells you about the right choice. Here's something that took a long time for a lot of very wise people to figure out. And it might make you feel slightly better right now. In most cases, there is no objectively right choice waiting to be discovered. There's just a choice, and then what you do with it afterward. A philosopher who spent his life studying how people change and grow wrote something that has stuck with many people across generations. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. This is the spirit of a winner. It sounds like a bumper sticker until you sit with it. He wasn't saying make the right choice every time. He was saying that the falling is part of it. The falling is expected. The falling is not the end of the story. The standing up is. Which means that even if you choose the wrong door, even if this turns out to be a mistake, it is survivable. Not just survivable, recoverable, possibly even useful. That doesn't mean the stakes aren't real. They might be very real, but the fear that one wrong step will ruin everything permanently is almost always larger than the actual risk. Our minds are extraordinarily good at making catastrophe feel certain. What to actually do when you're frozen. Okay, let's get practical because philosophy alone won't get you to sleep tonight. First, stop trying to think your way to certainty. Certainty is not on the table. It never was. No amount of additional information, additional list-making, or additional agonizing will get you to a place where you know for sure. You're waiting for a train that isn't coming. At some point, not tonight necessarily, but at some point, you'll have to walk. Second, give yourself a real deadline, not a fake one. Not I'll decide by the end of the week in that vague way where the end of the week comes and goes and you just feel worse. A real one. Write it down. Tell someone. Make it exist outside your own head. Deadlines work not because they force good thinking, but because they force any thinking to actually conclude. Third, ask yourself which option you'd regret not trying. This is different from asking which option is safer or which one sounds better in theory. It's asking, if I never do this, will I wonder? Regret has a particular shape. It tends to cluster around the things we didn't attempt far more than the things we tried and failed at. Listen for that shape. Fourth, talk to one person, not 12. Asking for opinions from everyone in your life doesn't help. It just adds 12 more voices to the noise already in your head. Find one person who knows you well, who has no stake in the outcome, and who will be honest rather than just kind. Have one real conversation, then make them stop talking about it with you, because you can only hear so much before it starts working against you. Fifth, notice what your body is doing, not in a mystical way, in a practical way. When you imagine yourself a year from now having chosen option A and actually living it, what does your chest do? What does your stomach do? Not the anxiety of choosing it, but the reality of having chosen it and moved on. The body often knows things the overthinking mind is too busy to hear. The courage part. There's a line that one writer put plainly in a book about facing hard things. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is feeling fear, recognizing fear, and still taking action. Read that again slowly. You're not supposed to feel confident before you choose. You're not supposed to feel ready. The fear you're feeling right now, that tightness, that dread, that sick loop of what if I'm wrong, that's not a sign that you shouldn't decide. That's just what deciding feels like when the stakes are real. Feeling afraid is not the same as being in danger. It's not a warning to wait longer. It's just the texture of doing something that matters. The decision doesn't require you to be fearless. It just requires you to move, scared, uncertain, imperfect, anyway. What if it goes wrong? Let's say you choose and it goes wrong. Let's not pretend that's impossible, because sometimes it happens. The same writer who talked about courage also wrote something about the hardest moments specifically, the ones where you've already committed and things are falling apart and you genuinely don't know if you can keep going. He described it as the last 5 minutes of endurance. That is what decides victory or defeat. The last 5 minutes. Not the first, not the middle. The part where most people stop, that's the part that actually counts. This isn't about being tough for toughness' sake. It's about trusting that the terrible middle part of any hard thing is not the whole story. You're allowed to be in the terrible middle. You're just not allowed to make permanent decisions from inside it. One last thing. Whatever you're deciding, whether it's enormous or whether it's the kind of thing you think you shouldn't be this torn up about, the fact that you care this much means something. Indifference doesn't keep people awake at 2 a.m. Love does. Fear does. The desire to get it right does. You're not broken. You're not uniquely incapable of making decisions. You're someone who is trying very hard to do the right thing, in a situation where the right thing isn't clearly labeled. That's enough of a starting point. Take a breath, get some sleep if you can. And when tomorrow comes, not perfectly, not fearlessly, but whenever you're ready, take one small step in any direction. The rest tends to follow. You can do this, not because it will be easy, because you can. That's the wisdom for today. If something here landed for you, share it with one person who might need to hear it too. Take it slow. I'll see you tomorrow on Lotus Lane Daily.